Welcome back to more FPL content. This will be the transfer tips for Double Gameweek 25, and we'll know who's going to double in that following game week once we have those Carabao Cup semi-finals take place, and we'll see who reached the final and their opponents in Game Week 29. The scheduled fixture will be brought forward to Double Gameweek 25, with the exception of those not playing in Europe, so Newcastle and Crystal Palace. If Newcastle were to reach the final, that wouldn't fall into place for Double Gameweek 25. The most likely scenario is that that would fall under Double Gameweek 33 later in the season. That's all been covered in my recent live streams on Friday and also the deadline and reaction streams over the weekend. Smash the like button and subscribe if you're new. If you enjoy my content, our aim is to get this to the 200 likes and to keep on pushing towards new goals like 32,000 subscribers. I've done a lot of new graphics for the channel to kind of enhance the quality and also vary things up a little bit. And the same goes for this transfer tips video where I highlight 11 players to buy, hold, sell and skip. You can see the most transferred in players at this point of the game week. Justin Kluivert is top despite that open goal miss against Liverpool and a blank, but he's still a very good purchase, as we'll get onto very soon. And towards the end, I will show you the most transferred out players at the moment. But without further ado, let's jump straight into it. If you want to see a chip strategy video and podcast, then let me know down in the comment section below, because I've got all the slides in place to discuss all the ins and outs of all the chips and the best time to use every single one of them, and a detailed breakdown of the assistant manager just in case you're still unsure about certain things. But in terms of Double Gameweek 25, all the permutations will be covered in this segment, and once those semi-finals take place, we'll have the full picture of Double Gameweek 25, and there'll be an updated transfer tips video. The same goes for a team selection, and if you want to see it as well, a wildcard team for Double Gameweek 25. But for now, of course, these will be transfer tips not really regarding Double Gameweek players, but my advice would be not to sell any players from Liverpool, Spurs, Fulham, Chelsea or Arsenal, the teams that could double in 25. The same goes for Aston Villa as well. So if Liverpool reach the Carabao Cup final, Liverpool and Aston Villa will blank in Game Week 29 and double in Game Week 25. So Liverpool would face Wolves at home and Aston Villa away in Game Week 25, whilst Aston Villa would have Ipswich Town and Liverpool both at home. If Arsenal reach the Carabao Cup final, then Arsenal and Chelsea will double in 25 and blank in 29 as a result. So Arsenal would face Leicester City away and Chelsea at home, whilst Chelsea would have 2 away games against Brighton and Arsenal. The other team to look out for is Tottenham Hotspur. If they beat Liverpool and reach the Carabao Cup final, they would blank in 29, just like Fulham, and they double in Game Week 25. So Spurs would face Man United at home and Fulham away, whilst Fulham would have 2 home games against Nottingham Forest and Tottenham Hotspur. And like I mentioned before, if Newcastle reached the Carabao Cup final, they would blank in 29, just like Crystal Palace, but their double would likely take place in 33, forming a double game week there, which could be a very small one, but potentially we could have up to 4 teams doubling in 33, perhaps even more, depending on how the Premier League treat Game Week 36, and maybe they neglect that and decide to put most of the doubles in Game Week 33, but that's not set in stone. There is also the possibility of a blank Game Week 37, but that's very unlikely at this moment in time. If you want to see all the potential doubles and blanks later this season, all the chips discussed like I mentioned before, then let me know down in the comment section below. Like the video so we can have a chip strategy guide to break down everything you need to know for FPL this season. So those are permutations at the moment, but my focus with these transfers I'm going to discuss now are going to be single game week options that don't include those 6 teams I just mentioned. The purchase section is going to be very heavy on one team this week, and Dean Howson is a very good budget defender to invest in. I think Milos Kerkez is arguably the ideal Bournemouth defender, but I would argue Howson offers even better value, and he scored more goals than Kerkez this season, with 2 coming against big teams in Manchester United and Tottenham Hotspur. He's got 11 bonus points as well, which is tremendous for a defender at his price range, and I think he could be an ideal 4th or 5th defender for the long term. He's also got 65 FPL points, averaging 3.6 per 90, which is just behind Kerkez, who averages 3.8. And if you look at Bournemouth's fixtures, Southampton away, Wolves at home, and then Brighton and Tottenham away, I think they can win 3 of those matches and keep 1 or 2 clean sheets. And I think Howson is just a very decent player here. He can keep a clean sheet immediately against Southampton, of course, but Bournemouth are really known for their attacking prowess. The midfielders will be the kind of ideal ones to invest in, but if you're on the market for a defender, I think Howson and Kerkez offer great solutions for your FPL setup, especially if you're looking to sell Veltman, Colwill, or you just want that cheaper option maybe, you're going to downgrade somebody from a premium option and just go for this budget defender, and he can also help you navigate the doubles and blanks seamlessly. Bournemouth should double later in the season and they will feature in Blank Gameweek 29, so I think Dean Howson is a great purchase. I've benched Semenyo for like 4 or 5 game weeks in a row, and it was sort of a relief to see him blank against Liverpool. He hit the crossbar though and had 6 shots in general. That takes him up to 91 for the season. I mean, his shot volume is simply ridiculous and his shot power is incredible. Sometimes you could argue that his placement is kind of lacking and his composure can be questioned at times, but he's a young winger with a lot of potential, and he's got 7 goals and 4 assists this season, only overshadowed by one teammate in the ranks who is on penalties as well. But Semenyo is still a very good investment. The same goes for Danga Ouattara, who was a skip in last week's video, but I think he would be a very good purchase this week too. I think any Bournemouth midfielder, essentially, you can't really go wrong with them, whether it's Kluivert, Semenyo or Ouattara. I have a personal preference in there, and Semenyo probably ranks second amongst those 3, but that shot volume is already very encouraging, and he's been threatening from open play all season. He can play on both flanks, but predominantly on the left-hand side, and the other stats are also fairly decent. 13 big chances, 8 big chance created, 27 key passes, and an XG figure of 6.97. So I think Semenyo offers great value at 5.6 million. I've got him in my team, and he's undoubtedly going to start against Southampton away in Game Week 25. Hopefully, he can break this trend of blanking in the easier fixtures and doing so well against the best teams in the country. The best Bournemouth midfielder right now is Justin Kluivert, and that hat-trick against Newcastle cemented his status as one of the best midfielders in the game. When he scored that hat-trick against Wolves a few months ago, I talked about skipping him at the time because it's going to be very rare to see a player score a hat-trick of penalties, and that's not something you can really rely upon. But he's had a lot of penalties this season, and that's boosted his appeal as an FPL asset. To have a midfielder at 5.9 million now, and beforehand, of course, he started at 5.5, to be on penalties, have decent underlying stats, and playing in such a exciting team like Bournemouth, there are so many boxes that he ticks. And you also look at those fixtures, like I said with Howson and Kirkes, they help you navigate Blank Gameweek 29 and future doubles as well. I think Kluivert is a very good investment, and I would prioritise him over Semenyo and Danga Ouattara, but I think there are obviously reports of Kluivert having a kid next week, so maybe you could argue he's not going to play in Game Week 25. That's something to monitor, but if he is available for that, I think he's a very good purchase, which I also mentioned in the last couple of weeks, and I think with the penalties, of course, that massively boosts him, and the stats now from open play are getting better and better. He also is getting more minutes compared to earlier in the season where he would get 60, 70, while Semenyo would get close to 90. But now the gap has been bridged, and that's why Justin Kluivert is a very good asset with 11 goals this season, 4 assists, an XG figure of 8.38, which is outstanding for a budget midfielder, and 123 FPL points, only trailing a certain amount of midfielders like Palmer, Salah, and Brian Mbeumo. And he's also got 14 big chances, 27 key passes, and 49 shots, which is nowhere near Semenyo, but he has been fairly clinical with some great goals from outside the box and a lot of penalties in the process. But Justin Kluivert is a buy. It's quite surprising to hear that Isak is the 4th most transferred out player this week, despite facing a Man City side that just shipped 5 goals to Arsenal. But I could see Isak to Watkins being a very popular move if Liverpool and Aston Villa double in Game Week 25, which, as I mentioned earlier, depends on Liverpool reaching the Carabao Cup final. But I think Isak is still worth holding on to in the vast majority of cases, and in fact, I would urge you to keep him in your FPL teams. He has 17 goals this season, 5 assists. He was very close to getting a goal against Fulham in that narrow defeat, and Newcastle have lost the last 2 home games, and that match against Arsenal in the Carabao Cup semi-final will be pivotal. If Newcastle somehow don't go through to the final, I think their season can turn upside down, and there will be a lot of pressure on Eddie Howe, and maybe they go into that Man City game with less confidence and they can go on to lose it. But even if that were the case, I'd expect the likes of Gordon and Isak to cause Man City all sorts of problems because they're shocking at the back. And Newcastle, the way they play with the quick transitions as well, I think they can really punish Man City on several occasions. Isak also has 24 big chances and 152 FPL points. All his stats are incredible. 10 big chance created, 36 key passes, an XG figure of 13.93 and 52 shots inside the box. He'll have a lot of suitors in the summer, and Newcastle do very well to keep him in their ranks next season, but Alexander-Isak is undoubtedly a hold for the long term. Not many players have registered more big chances than Alexander-Isak this season, but Ollie Watkins is one of them with 28 big chances. He's only scored 10 goals. He has missed some huge opportunities, but he's got 5 assists, 116 FPL points, and an ownership figure of 16.7%, and he could double next week if Liverpool reached the Carabao Cup final and Aston Villa would face Ipswich Town and Liverpool both at home. But the question is Ollie Watkins injured? He was subbed off due to a groin problem at half-time against Wolves in their 2-0 defeat, and Unai Emery said the following: "I changed him because he was feeling a bit of pain in his muscle." So we don't know too much about the injury. I think he'll be available for Game Week 25, and Watkins' injury record is outstanding. So if you do have Ollie Watkins, the same goes for any Aston Villa, Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea, Spurs, and Fulham asset who could double in Game Week 25. Keep all of them in your team and wait for more updates on Ollie Watkins, which will be provided on this channel in future videos. So stay tuned for that, of course. Ollie Watkins will probably transition into a purchase going into Game Week 25 if he's available, which I believe will be the case. But for now, hold your horses on this and wait for more information. But Ollie Watkins is definitely worth holding on to for a potential double game week. During the reaction stream, I covered Trent Alexander-Arnold's injury and all the latest updates provided by Arne Slot, where he said himself that Trent asked to be substituted, and of course that isn't very assuring when a player asks to be substituted, but Arne Slot himself says that in his opinion, he will unlikely make it for the Thursday game for the Carabao Cup semi-finals, but he's hoping they'll be available for the following matches, especially for Game Week 24 against Everton, and if that's the case, he'll be available, of course, for double Game Week 25 if Liverpool face Wolves at home and Aston Villa away. So Trent Alexander-Arnold should be held on to for now, but of course, if he does miss the Everton game and he's a doubt for Game Week 25, I wouldn't mind making that switch, particularly if Liverpool somehow don't reach that Carabao Cup final. Trent himself has 1 goal, 6 assists, 14 big chance created, and 107 FPL points with an ownership figure of 33.2%, and he's the most expensive defender in the game at 7.4 million. So if you are looking for replacements like Gabriel potentially, which I might do myself in a couple of weeks' time, I think it's very easy to make that sort of switch because Trent is more expensive than anybody else in this position. And there is also an update by the Liverpool Echo's Paul Gerst, and the reports are that Trent has avoided a serious injury, but Liverpool are awaiting the results of a scan. And once we know this, I'll be updating you, of course, in future videos and podcasts. And as for other stats for Trent Alexander-Arnold, 45 key passes, an XA figure, that is expected assists, of 6.41, and even the XG is okay for a defender at 1.1, but you would want to see more shots from him, especially inside the box. Only 6 this season for Trent Alexander-Arnold, but his crosses, delivery from set pieces and open play are simply brilliant, and I think Trent will be available for double Game Week 25. Over the last 10 game weeks, Lewis Hall has been the best defender in Fantasy Premier League, but he has tailed off in the last couple of matches, with 2 home defeats for Newcastle, where Hall didn't get a single assist against Fulham and Bournemouth, and in between, he had Southampton away, where many people would have started Lewis Hall, and he failed to deliver there. So I think there is a downturn in form for Newcastle and Lewis Hall, and you look at the next few fixtures, I don't see many clean sheets. Over the next 4, in fact, I think Newcastle would be pretty decent to keep 1, actually, and that's most likely going to come against West Ham away. I don't see that being the case against Man City, Nottingham Forest and Liverpool, with 2 of those games being away from home. But Lewis Hall has 5 assists this season, 30 key passes and 92 FPL points. I started this campaign with Lewis Hall and he was quite disappointing, but since December he has been outstanding. If you have a lot of value tied up in him, you might consider keeping him, and I completely understand that, but especially if you bought him late, I'd be looking to sell him to Dean Howson or Milos Kerkez potentially. They would be great replacements for Lewis Hall. Even if Newcastle reach the Carabao Cup final, they're not going to double in Game Week 25. I mean, if the Premier League were to announce something like that, it would be completely shocking on their part, because all the other clubs that could double in 25, all of those confirmations went out to those respective fan bases. So with that Newcastle double against Crystal Palace, if that were to be the case, it would happen in double Game Week 33. That's the most likely scenario, and not in 25. So I think there's a good time to sell Lewis Hall. This is a very simple one. Lisandro Martinez has suffered an ACL injury. He's going to be out between 6 to 8 months. That's a massive blow for Manchester United and Argentina, and hopefully he does recover very soon. We've seen a lot of ACL injuries this season, and hopefully we do see few of them, but with the amount of football being played, that's going to be very unlikely. Now, Alessandro has had some good moments for Man United, scoring some big goals. Even not so long ago against Fulham, he scored the winner, but Alessandro has also suffered a lot of injuries, and this is not just a sell for him, but also any Man United defender or goalkeeper you have. I'd be looking to sell any single one of them. The same goes for Brighton assets, of course, like Veltman and Verbruggen in goal. There are certain defences right now you can't trust, and Manchester United are one of them. You look at the next few games against Tottenham, Everton, Ipswich Town and Arsenal, maybe one clean sheet is possible, and you're looking at Game Week 27 for that. But Man United have had a terrible home record under Ruben Amorim. In fact, it's the worst start a Man United manager's had in terms of home results, and they're not really improving in the Premier League table. They're doing fairly well in the Cups, but that's not really covering up for some disastrous performances and results in the Premier League. But I'm looking to sell Lisandro Martinez. The same goes for De Ligt, Mezraoui, or any United defender, and Onana in goal. They're simply not worth investment at the moment. We are now onto the skips, where if you have this sort of player like Aina, for example, you can definitely hold on to him. But for those that haven't invested in Aina and you're looking to maybe buy a Forest defender right now, I just wouldn't really recommend that. I don't think it's great in terms of timing, and ultimately with Forest players, including Chris Wood up front, I think the best time to buy them would be Game Week 29 when they face Ipswich Town away from home. Then they've got brilliant fixtures in the long term, but you look at the next four: Fulham and Newcastle away, and then Arsenal, Man City at home. Forest could keep a clean sheet or two because they've been brilliant defensively all season, but I wouldn't be going out of my way to spend 5.4 million on Aina. I'd rather prioritise Bournemouth defenders like Kirkers or Howson. I think they're the best ones to go for right now. But Aina has 2 goals this season and 1 assist, but only 2 shots on target, so that's very unsustainable in my opinion. I've always highlighted that, and 107 FPL points, but he has been outstanding from an FPL perspective with the amount of clean sheets and hauls he's getting. The bonus points is also very solid, but the underlying stats aren't anything special. 2 big chances, 2 big chance created, 9 key passes, and 3 shots inside the box. But Aina has been a great player in the Premier League, something refreshing to see with Nottingham Forest being so high up the table, but I wouldn't be buying Forest players in Game Week 25. Crystal Palace are unbeaten in 3 months in the Premier League away from home. It's an outstanding record. I've been highlighting their unbeaten away record for quite some time now, but I think the best time to buy Crystal Palace assets was 5 or 6 weeks ago. I've been very bullish on Munoz and Mateta even before that time frame, and I think right now, despite some good fixtures on paper like Everton and Ipswich Town at home over the next 4, you have a potential blank in 29 if Newcastle reach the Carabao Cup final. So if you're looking to navigate blank Game Week 29 without using the free hit, I don't think Mark Gay really helps you from that perspective. The likes of Howson and Kirkers, though, would be very useful over the next 4 game weeks and also beyond that for blank Game Week 29 and beyond, with future doubles in mind. Now, Crystal Palace will have a double probably in Game Week 33, like I said, if Newcastle reach that Carabao Cup final. And Mark Gay has scored so many goals recently. 3 goals for Crystal Palace and 2 own goals as well, with 1 assist and 85 FPL points. Daniel Munoz is the best Crystal Palace defender, but he is more expensive right now. And Mark Gay was 4.4 million not so long ago, but the recent hauls have actually increased his price with a lot of transfer activity, and he's gone up to 4.6 million. His ownership is 7.9%, which is very surprising, but then again, he is getting points, good fixtures, people are investing and getting good returns out of it. But I wouldn't be looking to buy Crystal Palace assets at this moment in time. I think Jean-Philippe Mateta might still be a good investment, but with Mark Gay and Daniel Munoz, I wouldn't be buying them in right now. I think the clean sheets will start to dry up a little bit, and despite their great away form, I'm still not too convinced against Fulham and also future away games that will keep the clean sheets necessary, which will lead to results and make them really good purchases in the long term. So Mark Gay is a skip. The 11th and final player is another defender, this time in Luca Dean. I'm just not a big fan of any Aston Villa asset in this position, even Emi Martinez in goal. They don't keep enough clean sheets and they've been very shaky this season. They could have a double against Ipswich Town and Liverpool at home in Game Week 25, which I've covered in detail, but even if that was the case, I wouldn't be looking to buy Luca Dean. You should be prioritising Rodgers and Ollie Watkins, potentially Marcus Rashford, and go for their attackers. Defensively, I don't think Aston Villa are just worth the hassle, and Luca Dean could rotate with Maatsen during that double game week. So if you do have Luca Dean or Konsa, then obviously keep them, and I did say this before, you keep any player that could double in Game Week 25, but if you don't have Luca Dean and you're looking to invest in an Aston Villa defender, my advice would be no. Focus on other teams defensively, like Bournemouth, and instead focus on the Aston Villa attackers should they double in Game Week 25. Luca Dean has 4 assists this season, no goals, an XA figure of 3.04 and 63 FPL points. His ownership is still relatively low. He is kind of known as an FPL troll over the years during his time at Everton and now Aston Villa. I just don't think he's worth investment. Concert is the best of a bad bunch because he's the most nailed on. He can play centre-back and on the right. And with all the injuries Aston Villa have in central defence, I think Concert is just nailed on to play both games in a potential double in Game Week 25 and also in the long term. But you look at those fixtures, Chelsea at home afterwards, Crystal Palace away and Brentford away. I just don't see many clean sheets there for Aston Villa. So I think Luca Dean is another skip. That wraps up another transfer tips video, this time at a Double Gameweek 25. And if you want to see an updated version covering the Double Gameweek assets once the Carabao Cup semi-finals have concluded, then let me know down in the comment section below. Maybe you're also interested in seeing a chip strategy guide or the best wildcard team, but my transfer plans will be coming out very soon. The same goes for the team selection and a lot of pieces of content for FPL and UCL Fantasy ahead of match day 9 for the knockout playoff round. So keep your eyes peeled for those pieces of content by smashing the like button of this video and subscribing to the channel. I'm to get this to a 200 likes and to keep on pushing towards new goals like 32,000 subscribers. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a single upload. Follow me on X and Instagram, DylanRCM, and check all the links in the description, like my Patreon and the championships for early access to my videos, amongst many other perks. The Discord server, FPL League, Spotify, and Blue Sky can also be found in the description. Thank you very much for all your support. I wish you all the best of luck, of course, for the rest of Double Gameweek 24, 25, and the rest of the season. And I'll see you very soon for more FPL and UCL Fantasy content.